Well, wasn't it? What's happening with TikTok?
Well, they said it's consummated or going to consummate it or whatever. Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher, and I'm still in Korea. Hi, Scott.
Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah, I am. I'm not a big traveler. I like
What?
home.
You're not a big traveler. You travel all the time.
I know, but I like home if I had to pick, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Well, that's I assume you're not. It would be somewhat distressing if Amanda was listening and said, "Yeah, I like to be away from home."
Well, she's been great.
Whether that's true or not, that's the right thing to say.
I miss home, wherever it happens to be.
I can't stand my kids, and then about an hour into the drive to the airport, I start missing them. I can't.
Oh, really? I can stand my kids. I miss them a lot. I do.
Oh, well, you're a much better parent than me.
And well, that's kind of.
You get my point. I'm.
Do you want me to parent your kids if you'd like? No, your wife is great.
I could use the help.
You know, Trump's coming here and I'm leaving. That's one of my favorite parts of this.
He's going to Korea?
Yeah. Are you coming here? Let me just say for everybody, Scott's book comes out what day? November?
Yeah, it comes out November. I think it's November the 4th. Is that right?
Notes on Being a Woman. Yes. No.
There you go.
That's your next book.
That's what people are looking for me.
But it's coming out, and you're coming on my podcast. We're going to talk this week.
That's right. I just saw that on my calendar. I'm going on with Kara Swisher. I feel like that's like, I have never stayed at your house. That's what this feels like. It feels very uncomfortable.
I'm excited. It's pretty high up now. It's up in the top of the charts, getting up there. So I'll hope to sell books, but I'm excited to hear. I'm going to read the book. Oh, I have it on the plane. I'm going to read it on the plane. That's what I'll do. That's one of the things. That'll put me to sleep. No, I just want to know what it's like to be a man. It'll be great.
Someone asked me what my body count was, so I started counting and I fell asleep. Get it? Like counting sheep?
I see. All right.
You'll get there. You're a little jet lagged, but you'll get there.
I know I'm a little jet lagged. No, I'm just tired. It just was a long day because I have to say the crews here and the people have been amazing. That's the one thing. They're really lovely people, and hopefully it'll turn out okay. TV always makes me. There's a lot of waiting in television. I'm kind of glad to be done with the taping of this thing.
I was thinking about going to Korea for a scrotum lift. I think of it as low-hanging fruit.
Oh, my God. All right. We're going to stop. Speaking of plastic surgery, which you love, did you hear about this? The tech bros are all getting plastic surgery. They're following in your footsteps. Some surgeons have seen 5-fold increases in demand for men in tech in the last 5 years. Not a surprise, according to an article in the Wall Street Journal. I don't think it's just men in tech, but apparently and so there's a lot of them. Procedures, mini facelifts, neck lifts, that deep plane thing, eyelid lifts to stay looking youthful in a competitive job market. I didn't have any work done, but it's, I'm not surprised. Do you think? Are you surprised? It seems silly.
No, I mean, I get Botox, and I'm sure at some point I'll go into the knife. I think that, like, we're in an ageist culture. I think some of that is good.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to feel youthful. And I think the standards and the benchmark, there are so many people out there now. I don't know if you've noticed. Have you noticed this? It seems like every young person is hot. Between working out and skin treatments. In New York, all the young people are hot. I think the tunnels have some sort of X-ray or security posts where if you're not hot, you're not allowed into New York. But my sense is the aesthetic and the benchmark has gotten so...
Especially for men, right? For men, which I think is it's more common here or Brazil or different or Brazil, I think. But I've noticed a lot younger and a lot, just the way they were in some other countries, a lot younger and a lot more men.
Well, that's the growth part, is that women have always been, look, men are disproportionately and unfairly evaluated on their economic viability, women on their aesthetics. So there's always been an emphasis, and women have always spent a disproportionate amount of time and money on aesthetics. What's the delta or the change or the uplift in surgery is mostly coming from men, because it used to be men had to retire at 65, and now they say, no, I want to come back and bend the knee to Donald Trump and fuck up Disney, and I'm 74, but I want to look 73, so I get surgery. So guys everywhere are getting, the bottom line is the surgical techniques have gotten much better. And why look 65 if you can look 57, and if you have money and it's not that big a risk any longer? the question I have is, why wouldn't you? And some people say, well, I don't care. Do you really? Do you really not care what you look like?
Yeah.
So
yeah, those neck things men looked better with the neck. I hate to say it, but I'm not I don't like a lot of surgery. Although they, it's gotten better and better. I mean, that deep plane thing, but the thing around the neck with the guys I thought was really interesting is, they look kind of jowly and then they don't.
It's
I
a
have,
lower facelift.
Yeah, I have less jowls, I was told by the skin people. I don't have as many jowls.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Jowls are coming, of course, or the thing around your eyes, sort of the eye sockets and the double folds and this and that, or the triple folds and the heavy eyelid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, good. Well, I didn't have any while I was here, but maybe you could when you come. Anyway,
I'm for it. I'm a huge fan of it.
So speaking of Trump being here, he is actually coming Thursday. He's been in Asia, striking all manner of deals, which we'll talk about in a second. He's pulling tariffs off, it looks like, or striking deals. But he said he's putting a 10% tariff on imports from Canada after already canceling trade talks, all because of a TV ad that had accurate audio of Ronald Reagan criticizing tariffs. Trump called the ad, which was sponsored by the government of Ontario, that would be Doug Ford, a fraud and a hostile act. The spot features excerpts from a 1987 Ronald Reagan radio address on foreign trade. The audio is authentic, though it is slightly different order from the original speech. But it's what he said. The Reagan Presidential Foundation said the ad misrepresents Reagan words, but is unexplained was misrepresented. Because I went back and listened to the original, and it was the intent, but so I guess they shouldn't have rearranged it. But let's listen to some of this ad.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
I'll tell you, it was nice hearing a president who actually spoke in full sentences, a Republican one. Ontario's premier pulled the ad, but it did air in major U.S. markets over the weekend, including during the World Series. Talk about this from a marketing. This is this Doug Ford, who's this conservative, who was somewhat pro-Trump, as I recall, and now is sort of like, smacking him around up there and up north. Talk about it from a marketing, not so much the essence, because this is what Reagan thought, actually, but about doing this kind of things and why Trump is reacting like this.
Well, look, I think Canada's never looked stronger. It's just strange to be rooting for the Blue Jays when they're playing my home team, the Dodgers. It's just Canada, the U.S.'s strategy looks performative, faux masculinity, sclerotic. They're dictating trade policy off of commercials that antagonize the president. It's just... And Canada, I believe, is our biggest trading partner. Some people would say it depends on how you count it. It should be Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, one of the biggest problems we have in the United States is housing. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, because of NIMBYism and incumbents who control the government, we're fond of regulations that make it harder for the entrants to buy a home. And so we've let homes go from $290 to $410. And two of the largest inputs are gypsum drywall, which comes from Mexico, and lumber, which comes from Canada. So we're going to make homes more expensive unnecessarily. And Canada just looks more consistent and unafraid. And I think this has bolstered the brand of Canada. I think this will absolutely impact their economy negatively for 3 or 4 years. They will figure out different trade routes. It's no accident.
Which they are trying, of course.
Carney's headed to Asia as we speak.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of other export nations that'll say, you know what, we have really good products here too, and we're going to do it at zero tariff, and let's strengthen the relationship between Canada and Asia and Latin America. And then those relationships will be really hard to undo. And the next administration, and I'm trying to manifest this, is going to have to go on essentially a 48-month apology tour. And regardless of how effective that is, there's no way we're going to be able to compensate for the destruction to these 80-year trade alliances that has taken place over the last, 10 months. This is just, no one likes to be insulted or have economic warfare. And why this is just so incredibly stupid is, I'll just use an example. The Kentucky bourbon industry is basically going to be wiped off the map if they're not careful. So they have stopped buying Jack Daniels. Do you know the margins? The margins on lumber are probably like 10 to 30%. The operating margins are probably high single digits. Those companies don't trade at big multiples, the public traded lumber companies, if there are any. Whereas alcohol commands 90 points of margin. The majority of restaurants, the kind of the ugly secret of restaurants is they try to break even on the food and they make all their money on the alcohol.
On the alcohol, yeah.
Because they'll charge you $14 for a Maker's Mark and ginger ale, and it costs them about 60 cents. And so that's where they make all their margin. And we have some of the best alcohol brands in the world. And when we import them into Canada and they say no, it's not tit for tat. If we reduce our exports by $1 by declaring trade war and they reduce their exports go down $1, it's not dollar for dollar because our margins on our products tend to be higher.
Yeah. One of the things is interesting to me is, from a marketing perspective, Reagan used to be the gold standard of Republicans, right? And we're showing our age. We remember the age of Reagan, which wasn't as great as people are now making it out to be, although some of these speeches are terrific, especially the immigration one, which is one of his last speeches. But, the marketing strength of Ronald Reagan is over. Mr. Morning in America, which is very different from Make America Great Again, right? In terms of, that was some marketing expertise, the Reagan administration. But it doesn't work, I guess, except to irritate Donald Trump.
I mean, he was an actor and he was very handsome. And regardless of some of his policies, I mean, I like Ronald Reagan and it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, but he refused to use the word AIDS. And in a period where, anyways, we have a tendency to decide people in history are either very, very good or very, very bad. And because history is sort of a crude, blunt instrument. I mean, if you think about him as there are no more Republicans, or at least
he was brand Republican forever, right?
But what is
Trump
that?
is completely.
It's fiscal.
A long time ago. Yeah,
it's fiscal responsibility. Okay, that's gone out the window. $7 trillion in deficits from George Washington to George Bush. Since then, it's been $30 trillion. And a Republican tried to convince us, and we believed him, that we could go to war and cut taxes at the same time. That was W. And since then, Democrats and Republican administrations since then have said to the children that are the United States voter right now, no, you can stay up till 2 a.m. and eat sugar and not have dinner, and you don't have to go to school tomorrow, and nothing bad will ever happen.
Yeah.
So Americans have gotten used to spending $7 trillion on $5 trillion and believing that everything will be okay. So fiscal responsibility was a touchstone of Republican administrations. That's gone. A low involvement or less involvement, not overarching government combined with personal liberty. And that was, you get to make these decisions and government should not be in your life. And we now have a government which is essentially a cross between socialism and cronyism. And that is, the government is very involved in corporate decisions, but it's based on who he likes or doesn't like, who curries favor with him or doesn't. That could not be more non-Republican. So, I mean, it's the Democrats who on economic policy and individual rights appear to be more Republican. If I could go back in time, Teddy Roosevelt was all about the environment. Everything is upside down right now. An embrace of foreign relationships, non-protectionism was a very Republican thing.
Well, speaking of which, on the other tariff front, though, U.S. and Chinese officials have reached yet another framework of a deal avoid 100% tariffs that Trump threatened to impose. Taco Trump. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who really is sort of it seems to be undignified now, also said on Face the Nation that Trump and Xi are set to finalize a TikTok deal this week. Let's listen to how he talked about this.
We reached a final deal on TikTok. We'd reached one in Madrid, and I believe that as of today, all the details are ironed out, and that will be for the two leaders to consummate that transaction on Thursday in Korea.
I'm getting the hell out of Korea before consummation. Let's hope not. So there's that happening, which I think something you talked about needing to happen, the Chinese to come to terms with China.
Yeah, but I don't know what that means. What
Yeah.
if they have a commercial that pisses them off on the way over? I don't.
Yeah.
And the 100% tariff, and I think that China definitely has its own problems. I mean, what you have to, when you're establishing or trying to understand a battle and doing our game theory, you've got to look at the strengths they have that you don't have. And China has the advantages of an authoritarian government where the autocrat has established power for the next 10, 20, 30 years. He's consolidated power. They have the CCP. I don't know if it's unpopular or popular, but I don't think it's very unpopular. The economy there has struggles, but the Chinese, to a certain extent, have the same advantage that the Russians have in Ukraine, and that is their willingness to endure and inflict pain on their populace for long-term interests. Americans, if AWS goes out and Netflix goes down, the whole nation freaks out. China is absolutely willing to put companies out of business. It's willing to decrease their prosperity, but it's not going to be pushed around by America. And also, we have a tendency to think, this administration anyways, that it's the biggest customer at rolling up to the bar. We're the third largest trading partner. The Association for Southeast Asian Nations is their largest trading partner. The second largest, they do more trade with the EU than they do with the U.S. And they have already vastly decrease the percentage of trade going to the U.S. So he shows up, and again, this is just such a common error in judgment and in strategy. He shows up thinking he has cards he doesn't have. And Americans, if inflation pops to 5 or 6% here, Americans are going to freak out. They could go to 15% in China. And the Chinese government has killed tens of millions of its own people or let them starve for what they perceive to be national interests. So to think that he can show up and muscle them around, he is totally miscalculating and misappraising his adversary over there. So I don't trust him nor any of his team to get a deal done or, quote unquote, a framework.
So we'll wait and see. Right, a framework of a deal, yet another.
What's happening with TikTok? I mean, I don't know.
Well, they said it's consummated or going to consummate it or whatever. They're going to fuck each other. I don't know why he used that word. But presumably it's going to Larry Ellison, as is everything. It's apparently in media. This is the most important element of Ellison's burgeoning media empire, of course. What's going to happen here. But I don't know what it means. I guess they're just decided, give it to him. What's the difference, right? Like, we don't need this. And if we can get everything else. I mean, there was an interesting, I read a lot of the analysis of this. And basically what they've decided to do, as every other leader, including leader of Japan, is to flatter him, to compliment him, and then get what you want, right, essentially, and which is kind of depressing. Like, they've just figured him out pretty easily. And we'll see. The Chinese, you're absolutely right, are in it for the long haul. So we'll see what they have to say. It'll be the TikTok thing is what I'll be paying attention to, but we'll see if they do something. What I think Trump is trying to do, it's so interesting because presidents all start out locally and end up in foreign places doing these trips. And I think Trump is very comfortable acting like he's big BMOC across the world, essentially. And so these leaders have figured out a way to please him. It's kind of sad. It's like pleasing an old man, like, let's pet him and this and that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Here's my prediction. He's going to go up to the DMZ and go visit his friend in North Korea. So we'll see. He's so close. I can't imagine he would, he keeps talking about him. He talks about him in a nicer way than he talks about other Americans, which is really kind of depressing given he's a dictator and not just an autocrat, even worse than that.
But those are his role models. He's very much about strength. And again, he conflates strength with coarseness and cruelty and authoritarianism. And that's not, it's just a terrible, and the problem is he's been successful in the short term at it. He's won the presidency twice.
Yeah.
Everybody's falling in line behind him.
Yeah.
And it's out of the authoritarian playbook. Reward the people who are loyal to you, punish severely the people who aren't loyal to you. And the 53 Republican senators are all going along with it, as are the majority of the House of Representatives. There's been a few notable breaks. Senator Paul is questioning us bombing boats. We spend $1 trillion on our military that's supposed to be so lethal, and yet we're not pushing back on a murderous autocrat. In Europe, we've decided to bomb fishing boats.
We'll see what happens. We're going to go on a quick break. When we come back, this is a story that I think is not getting nearly enough attention. We'll discuss the latest crypto pardon.
Support for the show comes from ZBiotics. When you have exciting evening plans, that should mean you have to automatically cancel your plans the next day. Well, with ZBiotics pre-alcohol, a fun night doesn't have to mean a rough morning. ZBiotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how the folks at ZBiotics say it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I am, as I get older, trying to drink less, but when I do drink, I do use ZBiotics, and I have found that on average it takes about 30 to 50% of kind of the uck out of the next morning, if you will. Go to zbiotics.com/pivot to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Pivot at checkout. ZBiotics is back with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/pivot and use code PIVOT at checkout for 15% off.
Scott, we're back. President Trump has pardoned Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ, the founder of the crypto exchange Binance. CZ pleaded guilty in 2023 to violating anti-money laundering laws and served 4 months in a federal prison, while Binance paid $4.3 billion to settle with the Justice Department. CZ has been working on a pardon for months. There seems to be a playbook here with the Trump people, hiring lobbyists with ties to Trump and making podcast appearances praising the president. Binance is also a key backer of the Trump family's, this is the key one, crypto venture, World Liberty Financial, and helped launch its stablecoin earlier this year. In a post on X, CZ said he was grateful to Trump and pledged to help make America the capital of crypto. I assume Sam Bankman-Fried is next. What do you think of this? Because we've been talking a lot about how this focus on crypto with his family sort of larding itself over in money and just money, really.
Well, I think it's important to understand why CZ was incarcerated.
Mm-hmm.
And he was incarcerated because Binance was found guilty of laundering money. And that sounds somewhat innocuous, but according to the Department of Treasury, Binance failed to report the following: transactions associated with terrorist groups, including
Hamas.
Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hamas, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, millions of dollars in ransomware transactions. Binance is one of the largest receivers of ransomware proceeds. Transactions associated with child sexual abuse materials. So people hear about sextortation and think that is the most heinous crime ever. Well, folks, there's a technological infrastructure behind it. And money laundering with funds that can't be tracked is part of it. And then transactions associated with drugs, fraud, and other illegal contraband. His official charges were again around money laundering, and he'd served 4 months, and Binance was barred from operating in the U.S. But here's what they did. Binance received a $2 billion investment from the Abu Dhabi investment firm MGX, and then Binance decided to accept the investment via World Liberty Financial USD1 stablecoin, which, by the way, the majority stake is still connected in World Liberty Financial USD1 is still connected to the financial wealth and buttressing the financial wealth of Trump and his family, which owns 38% of World Liberty Financial. So put another way, make me richer, and I will let the person that a judge and jury and our institutions decided to incarcerate because he was facilitating transactions to terrorists and people engaged in child sex exploitation. I'm letting that person out if you agreed to make me and my family richer.
Yeah.
And because this feels very circular and complicated, and we're so busy watching stupid fucking videos of a construction project at Pennsylvania Avenue, we take our eye off the ball. There's going to be more kids who are going to be in scams, send naked pictures of themselves and then be extorted and then potentially engage in self-harm because the people on the other end can find a means of transacting these payments and this exploitation.
You know, if you're watching a Bond movie, CZ's the one he ends up golfing in the end. Like, he's the money laundering, mogul, essentially. And so this was a criminal act, this guy. And
But we're bombing fishing boats.
Most people in crypto think this too, by the way, FYI. So it's sort of they've just decided crypto good no matter what. And it's like saying banking good or whatever. There's all kinds of bankers that are culpable in these kind of things, by the way. It's not just limited to crypto. But this is just, this was such a straight line grift. It's just like absolutely out in the open. Everything's out in the open. Even if, I agree with you with all the hand waving around the White House thing, which I'll talk about later. But it's really, this one really deserves more attention, especially for what this company did. This company did. And I assume Sam Bankman-Fried is next, who is comparatively minor compared to this guy, right? That was just your basic, I made a mess. I didn't realize that was his excuse. But there's a whole way to get a pardon from Trump.
Yeah, but he doesn't have the power right now. FTX doesn't have the platform or the power to make the Trumps rich. This is, to a certain extent, there's sort of, I don't want to call it low-calorie corruption, but when Eric goes over and says, build a hotel and give me better financing terms and finance it, somebody still has to build the hotel. There is some risk. It's corruption. But what they found is if we're going to be corrupt, let's just figure out a way to pump up.
Let's go to the top,
a synthetic currency that has no value underlying utility. Yeah. And then we don't even have to report when we sell it. And nobody has to operate it. And we don't even have to pretend that we know how to be in the hospitality business. We don't have to build it. We just get people to basically funnel money into it, massively inflate the market. We sell. Nobody even knows we've sold. And boom, this is the most elegant, clean, frictionless form of corruption. So they're like, okay, Nancy Pelosi that does insider trading, but you have to report those trades. Okay. Trump, who gets a 747, we actually see the 747. He's got to fly it around. He's got to justify it. No, this is easier. Nobody even really, there's no records of this. As far as we know, we think they've made $3 to $5 billion off these crypto scams, but it's even hard to tell how much money they've made. We don't know how to connect it to, we know when the Qatari government says, give us NATO-like protection after giving the president a $400 million plane, we can connect the dots. But when he launches a meme coin and someone calls him and says, FYI, tomorrow I'm going to buy $1 billion or $100 million worth of Trump coin, which will take the price up. And if you want to sell some, that's your business, Mr. President. Yeah. But in addition, would you mind not shipping Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine for a while? Yeah. We're not able to connect those dots. There's no public filing disclosure.
Well, you know what? Actually, I've heard from a lot of people. A lot of people in crypto don't love all this stuff because the hammer is going to come down on this industry again. I thought the Biden administration was too slow to embrace some of the good parts of it. I talked to a lot of crypto people. And the reason was because it has such a proclivity towards what you were just talking about, money laundering and sexual abuse and terrorism and payoffs and stuff like that in terms of the ability to disappear a lot of these transactions. But it was on its way, and Biden administration was unnecessarily harsh on this group of people. But I think an abundance of caution. I don't think it was a particular hostility to it. It was just more of the worries about the downside versus the upside. And I just feel like the hammer will come down on this industry after this is all over. And the second part is I've been told by a lot of tech people that there are people monitoring what is happening here, and there are ways to follow the money.
I hope so.
There's always ways, and quietly they're doing that, and eventually some of these people are going to pay. We'll see, but just all you have to do is pay this guy off to get out. And speaking of which, the one that also troubled me was the tech and business leaders are getting credit for coordinated effort to stop Trump from sending troops to San Francisco. Mayor Daniel Lurie reportedly worked with Sam Altman, Jensen Huang, Mark Benioff, and others to get the president to reconsider. Trump acknowledged the lobbying in a Truth Social post, saying he got calls from friends of mine and decided not to surge San Francisco, as he put it. I find this repulsive, this strategy is that, I'm not, I've been in touch with Benioff recently about the whole thing with the troops. And he knows what I think, which is that he should have never called for them. But none of you get a thank you for telling a bully not to do something that's stupid, right? I don't want my democracy to be run because these guys can call him up or go to a dinner or give him money. But this was the wrong thing to do for all these cities, and including San Francisco. And the fact that the only way it gets saved is these guys call him. Like, what in the world? No one's making decisions based on the right thing to do. It's based on these incredibly powerful people who have access. And then the regular Americans don't have access to make their argument one way or the other. But I find this truly disturbing. And, none of them has said, you should thank me, Kara, because I'd be like, go fuck yourself. Like, how dare you that this is the way things are done? I find it something quite vague, just disturbing about this. This is how it's done, as they say in K-pop Demon Hunters.
But Mayor Lurie trying to enlist local business people to lobby the president
he has
to not send in the National Guard and create disruption and terrorize local residents. Kudos to him. I think that's the right thing to do.
I agree.
The problem is they're operating in a context that's illegal and non-American, and that is
right. That's right.
Barry Goldwater said this. He said, we're placing too much power in the office of the presidency. The whole point of a democracy is you have a diffuse sense of power such that there's checks and balances, and that, unfortunately, you don't go as fast, but it prevents the tragedy of the commons. And if you're going to send in the National Guard into cities, there needs to be some sort of oversight, or there needs to be some sort of legal justification or systemic laws that say this is when the National Guard can be sent into a city and what its mission is, not, well, I don't like the mayor here, I don't like the governor here, or Epstein's starting to creep back into the news, I need to launch the National Guard or pulse the National Guard into a city. It's just so, I can't imagine, and I don't know how much of it, I'm convinced now that, and I've said this before, we're just going to be so angry at the mind control that these algorithms have over us, and we don't even realize how much. The most upsetting things I see, I think, is that true? Is all of that footage of ICE agents.
Yeah.
I just find the idea that these guys are in masks.
Yeah.
The idea, there's a basic principle that is so core to our democracy and what is wonderful about America. And that is we target and ideally reward people based on their behavior, not their identity.
Mm-hmm.
And that is we say, okay, if you're a gay woman and you're great at what you do and you take risks, you can make a lot of money and have a nice life here. And we aren't going to start rounding up people or asking them, are you born here? Which the ICE agents are doing because they're brown. When they're on their way inside to Kroger's.
Yeah. So, every one of these agents seems like a brute, right? I feel like I'm in some like Steven Seagal movie with bad people. Like the way they're talking to people and how the masks and they look like they've had way too many steroids, every one of them. Like it feels so villainous, and it's either villainous or you got to be a rich guy to get through, and it does feel un-American. When I heard that Sam Altman had to call him off, that's our line of defense, not because it's not good. I just was like, this is ridiculous.
Well, it kind of goes to the same thing now where because of the government shutdown, rather than saying, okay, there's a government shutdown, you need to negotiate with a co-equal branch of government. It's like, no, I'll just get my rich friend to pay the military and the people I like in the government. This is not how you're supposed to run a government where the president gets to decide who in the government gets paid and who doesn't. And he can call someone and say, hey, I look really bad here. Can you give me $100 million? And by the way, wink, wink, I'll make it up to you with a series of laws that transfer wealth from small and medium-sized businesses and your competitors to you. It might even not impact the economy that much in the short run because the economy churns on. But what it does over the long term is a lot of people don't want to invest here. A lot of people don't want to immigrate here. A lot of people don't want to start businesses because they're worried that they're not going to be protected by the rule of fair play and law. I don't think Americans realize how many really talented people come here and how much capital comes here because they feel that there is a rule of fair play here.
That's what it is. Rule of fair play.
I met this Russian kid who came over here and he'd started one of those home delivery companies and he made a bunch of money. He was a successful entrepreneur in Russia. He had a wonderful life. I said, why did you move here? He said, you live in fear in Russia that someone you don't even know makes a call and your business is done the next day. And you don't even know who made the call.
I know.
And that's what's effectively, we're headed that way.
Right. I know. I just, for some reason, this just stuck in my craw. Thank God Benioff didn't text me like, you want to say thank you. I'd be like, go fuck yourself. I don't mean that, Mark, but honestly, seriously, this is not the way it should be done. Speaking of things that are another thing that, speaking of robots, which I'm seeing a lot of robot companies here, by the way. Amazon executives believe the company can replace more than 500,000 warehouse jobs with robots, because this is where it's heading. I'll go into it in a second. With robots over the next several years, according to internal documents obtained by the New York Times. Documents show Amazon's robotics team has an ultimate goal to automate 75% of its operations. I bet it's even higher. They reveal Amazon is planning to manage public backlash by promoting a, quote, good corporate citizen image, participating in community events like parades and toy drives. Executives also discuss ditching words like automation and AI, and instead using advanced technology and cobots, collaborative robots. Amazon says the documents viewed at the Times were incomplete and did not reflect its overall hiring strategy. Let me tell you, years and years ago, and I was looking for the pictures, I was going to show it to some people here. After Amazon bought Kiva, which was, I thought, a critical purchase at the time. It was a logistics, it was a robotic, it moved things around the factory. And Amazon, for some reason, invited me in to see the factory. And I went to see it and watched these Kiva, I think they were Kiva-powered robots moving stuff around. And they had people in the factory, but a lot of it was automated, obviously. And it's pretty cool when you see them put on labels or put on whatever. It was quite an automated factory. And I guess publicly I said, they're never going to they're moving towards no people in these warehouses. This was about 10 years ago. You could see, they're so smart. You could see what they were doing, right? And I remember one of the Kennedys who was representing Massachusetts, I can't remember which one it was saying, oh, they're going to put an Amazon warehouse in my district. I'm like, they're not going to have people in it. Like, and I remember Amazon calling me and saying, don't be saying that. And I'm like, but it seems so obvious to me. And so this is where they're going with these. There will be no people in Amazon warehouses, or very few people. And then pretending otherwise seems kind of ridiculous, because they're really quite good at it, and they're a logistics company more than a commerce company. And here in Korea, I was just in a thing called Robot Valley. I mean, robotics do not get enough attention compared to AI, but AI combined with robotics is really like one of these amazing and also terrifying breakthroughs for humanity, it seems to me. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a similar issue to all these data centers that Congress people are excited to get in their district. But the reality is you could turn the lights off during the day because there's nobody working there. There's some labor involved in building these things. But once they're up and running, they're just a huge draw on the local electric or power supply, and they don't create a lot of jobs. I think robots and automation are in many ways, it's always the shit you're not expecting that impacts you to the upside and the downside. I actually think the more important technology over the next 24 months that would be the best bet for America is not GPT-5. I think it's GLP-1. I think that would be a better bet for America if they put GLP-1 in the hands of every obese person in a low-income home. And I think robotics, to your point, are in some ways more important than AI, because I think that Jeff Bezos and Dara Khosrowshahi dream of a lack of drivers and factory workers. I think they think, okay, think about the majority of the bad press that Amazon has probably received in the last 10 years. A lot of it is stories of these delivery men in vans who have pee bottles and aren't paid well and have to hit quotas and have health insurance. I got to be honest, I'm here for it. I would love to see AI pilots in planes. If you look at the majority of, and it won't happen because of psychological reasons, but if you look at the majority of plane crashes, and there's very few, they're almost always pilot error.
Yeah.
And so there will be job creation, though. There will be people that have to program and build these things and service them. It'll be a higher wage job. But the story of America is that the low-wage, low-value-add production jobs slowly but surely get screened out as we move from an agrarian to a manufacturing to a services to a quote-unquote innovation economy. I think it's a good thing. The problem with America is that we're not very good at retraining and supporting the people on the wrong end of that trade. We're very much winners and losers. Like, sorry, boss, it's the Hunger Games here. But I think it'll be America. Actually, if you look at the economy right now, it's a giant bet on AI, but there has been some real investment in manufacturing of our industrial base. And I think the only way we compete with China is to have these types of factories.
Oh, China's way ahead on this stuff. I mean, all of Asia is in a lot of ways. And again, AI gets all the attention, but AI combined with robotics is really, now there can be, let me say, there's sort of a thing called human-centric robots where it's not not just getting our coffee.
Call a
and
sex
this and
doll.
that. Okay, that's right where you go to. But I'm talking the stuff the exoskeletons to help people walk better, to help the elderly. Like eventually, there's all manner. And one of the things I had a really interesting discussion with Alex, who is a mechanical engineering student, and he's like, "Why do robotics have like Elon Musk is?" They laugh at Elon Musk here in Korea, I have to tell you, because he's like going, "I'm going to make Optimus, going to make these humanoid robots." They don't have to look like humans. Like the real changes are in places like what Amazon has done, which is they're robots. They're just not the robots you think of from science fiction. Doing a hand, like Alex was like, why does a dog walking robot have to look like a person? In fact, that's hard. They fall over the hand. It's funny. Like automation is and I think actually automation's not it is the right word, right? That's actually, instead of calling it advanced technology, it's automation. But there's all kinds of ways robotics are going to affect us, and especially when it now, like this one thing I was wearing, it uses AI to collect data in real time about my body movements, which would then calculate how these robots should be adjusted per person in real time. And it used to be they'd have to be adjusted individually, but they don't have to anymore. Same thing with cars, same thing. So the combination is really both deadly to jobs and at the same time breathtaking in terms of savings, like what it's going to do.
So each year, and this is a thinly veiled ad, I do my predictions deck, and that is sometime in November. I put together a deck and I say, these are my predictions for the oncoming year in society, stock market, technology. And each year I pick one of the big 10 companies, one of the Magnificent 10, or one of the big 4, actually, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, or Alphabet. And I say, this will be the best performing stock, and this is why. Last year I picked Alphabet. It's up 60% in the last year.
Well done.
Thank you. Pat myself on the back. This year, my pick is probably going to be Amazon. And that is, it actually hasn't performed very well the last couple of years. But traditionally, their margin expansion has been powered by AWS and the unsung hero of the business, and that is Amazon Media Group running the ads on the platform. And they force retailers to run ads, and it's very high margin. Now the margin expansion is happening in retail. For over a decade, the fulfillment and shipping costs balloon more quickly than sales, decreasing margins. And then that reversed 2 years ago, and retail sales are now growing faster than shipping costs.
That's because they got everyone to use Prime, right? They got everybody in on it. They were losing money on Prime, I would assume.
But also because robotics and the huge investment they've made in robotics is finally delivering operational leverage. Amazon expects to save about $13 billion from 2025 to 2027 as a result of automation. And assuming no change in Amazon's enterprise value to EBITDA multiple, as you can tell, I'm doing a lot of work on this. That translates to roughly $200 billion extra in enterprise value. Plus, it expects to sell twice as many products by 2033. I think all the investments they've made in automation, coupled with robotics and AI, they're about to get huge leverage. So whereas ads and AWS have added all the margin, I actually think retail is about to be where they expand their margins.
That's interesting. Oh, I think it's going to go across the entire country, actually. When I one time was visiting, we would finish up on this, but Kentucky, and they were talking about Silicon Holler and all this stuff and bringing back coal. Remember, Trump was bringing back coal. And I remember I stood up and I said, they're going to bring it back by robots. What do they need you for? Like, you get sick. It's bad for you to be mining coal. And I was cut off, like, don't say that. I'm like, well, of course they're going to use robots, like, or whatever, the automation. I don't care what word you use. But what's astonishing is how good Korea and China and all these countries are, and they're really making investments in robotics. And you're absolutely right. Amazon has been far ahead of any other. There are lots of manufacturing. That's how we return with manufacturing, but it's not going to be with people at all.
But I would describe the last few years in terms of robotics as it relates to the retail as the investment phase, and it hasn't delivered. It's been expensive and it hasn't delivered the leverage yet. But I think that's pivoting and switching, and the stock. Even though it's up 20% in the last year, it's underperformed its competitors. Amazon typically trades at a 5-year average PE multiple of 60, and right now it's trading at 34. Anyways, I think that leverage, the fact that it's reasonably priced. I'm excited about. I'm excited about Amazon over the next 12 months.
I'm glad you've been focused on this. This is interesting. Anyway, let's go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Argentina's election results.
Support for the show comes from Apple. Before the show was even a podcast, all I had was an idea. And once I had that, all I really needed to get started was a mic and a Mac. I have been starting businesses my whole life. One thing that has been static, a constant in all of my business, is Apple products. They just work. They send the right signal. It sounds sort of strange, but they make me feel good about myself. They make me feel creative. But they have been just a foundation upon which I have built my businesses. No matter what you have an idea for, whether it's starting the business you've been dreaming of, a game-changing piece of tech, or finally writing that book, go for it. You just need to get started. Your great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
Scott, we're back with more news. The payoff of Donald Trump to help the Argentinian economy has helped. Argentina's president, Javier Milei's party swept the country's midterm elections, winning 40% of the votes. They had to get above 35, compared with around 24% for the main oppositions, which are the Peronists, who had been running Argentina badly for many years. President Trump endorsed Milei earlier this month and said a $20 billion currency swap bailout from the U.S. was contingent on his midterm success. Trump took Truth Social to congratulate Milei, saying he's making us all look good. And don't worry about the cost of the bailout. Let's listen to the comforting words of Treasury, the thirstiest Treasury Secretary I've ever seen, Scott Bessent, on Meet the Press this weekend.
It is America first because we are supporting a U.S. ally. There will be no taxpayer losses. This is a swap line. This is not a bailout.
Well, this is working. I mean, this helped Milei, I think, quite a bit in the thing. You know, there's been a lot of pain what he's doing, some of which it should have happened because Argentina has had like enormous inflation and things like that. But he's doing it in sort of this incredibly brutal way. So talk about this. Explain what Bessent was saying here. With this is a swap line. This is not a bailout.
Well, I believe we're just exchanging dollars for pesos, but the peso has a habit of totally crashing and devaluing. Argentina at the end of World War II was the third or fourth largest economy in the world because Britain had basically spent everything it had. Two hugely productive economies were decimated, Japan and Germany. And Argentina has been the kind of medium-sized engine that can. It has been a fucking disaster, despite an incredible blessing of natural resources, really good universities, an amazing culture, great natural resources. They have just been fucked over and over by kind of socialist, corrupt governments. The country has entered into IMF rescue programs 23 times since 1956, more than any other nation. This nation has been bailed out more times than any other nation by the IMF. The most recent major IMF loan to Argentina was for $57 billion in 2018, and it failed to stabilize the economy and led to a default just 2 years later. Over the past 50 years, Argentina has defaulted 9 times. So basically every 5.5 years, this country defaults, which has resulted in constant hyperinflation and peso devaluation. In the past year alone, the U.S. dollar has increased 350% against the peso. So, let's call this for what it is. This is Trump bailing out one of his friends.
Yeah.
And
same thing. Like Same thing.
But it's not even about Malay. It's about Rob Citron, a longtime associate of Treasury Secretary Besant, who runs a hedge fund and has significant exposure to Argentine bonds and stocks. And what does it do? Again, this is about fucking corruption. The bailout props up these prices, offering a crucial window or exit to mark up the investments of his buddy, who will make a huge donation to the Trump campaign. Stan Druckenmiller, Besant's former mentor at Soros Fund Management, is also involved. His Duquesne family office was recently disclosed as the second largest investor in Argentina's main exchange-related fund, traded fund. Citron, meanwhile, has made Argentina his biggest bet in Latin America. This is just... This is literally an orgy of corruption.
It really is. It's just...
And we're the ones that get like a $5 tip and have been fucked so many ways, and we just leave the party, naked and like abused. And that's basically anyone that doesn't get to hang out in the mansion, who's not willing to fillet the big fat man. I mean, it's just... To think that this isn't going to cost other hedge funds looking for true alpha and looking for investments, to think that somehow we're not going to end up bailing them out again, and to think about how just moronic this is. We put a tariff on China, which makes no sense. They're smart. They go, I know, I'm going to go for your heart and lungs. I'm going to go after the red states and the people who voted for you 4-1, the farmers, and we're going to stop buying all of your soybeans. Those farmers go out of business, right? And who do the Chinese get their soybeans from now? Argentina, where we're
the soybean farmer.
We're getting, I mean...
Did you see that? Besant calling himself a soybean.
Yeah, he's a soybean. He's worth $500 million. Yeah, he's literally... You are my wife? Goodbye, city life. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Anyone who's not real old like us doesn't get that's Green Acres.
Yeah, doesn't get that. By the way, that guy, what was his name?
Ed Albert. Eddie
thank
Albert.
you, the producer. Eddie Albert. He was a very successful spy, a true patriot. That guy led a very impressive life.
And yet he ended up on Green Acres.
With Eva Gabor.
To be. Farm living is the life for me. Oh my God, I remember the whole song. Land spreading out so far and wide.
New York is where I'd rather be. Oh my God.
Anyway, we're like them,
I love that. That was right before the Beverly Hillbillies.
I have that whole song in my fucking head. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyways, what we were talking about, the orgy of corruption. We're bailing out, we're punishing farmers with sclerotic trade policy, and then taking money and sending it to the new supplier of soybeans, Argentina. That money, it's unlikely. Argentina needs structural reform. To Malay's credit, he is implementing structural reform.
Indeed.
He is. I think he's kind of exactly what Argentina needed. He would have won without Trump, but because of Trump, I think he got more seats, more total power.
Yeah.
And I think you can pretty much write off a prediction. You can write off 30 of that $40 billion. It's gone. Nothing's going to get in the way of the pace of devaluation over the short term. This is an economy with structural issues. I hope they come out of it.
Yeah.
I was an investor in a company that used to hire these amazing engineers from the Cordoba University or University in Cordoba, Argentina. And the funniest thing was we had a down quarter and we were cutting the budget. It was a company called Olapic, which we ended up selling, and it was a big win. Great, three really super intelligent guys, 2 Spaniards, 1 Argentinian guy. And the Argentinian guy was in charge of the engineering team, and we could get great engineers for like 40 grand instead of 140 or 240 outside of Cordoba. And the only line item that we could never cut was the asado budget. That was beef. Every Friday, they had asado. They had beef for all of the engineers. And that was like the only thing you were never allowed to touch. This was the key to the entire culture.
Wow.
Was their beef.
Well, I when I was looking at that before this happened, besides the Trump payoff, I think it did help him. I think it absolutely, the money that he was getting from Trump. But one of the things was, everyone was like, oh, he's going to lose. I'm like, but the choices, the Peronists were terrible. Like 80 years of shitty management. I don't see that being the option. So he was the only option in a lot of ways, even though it's taking its toll. He's also crazy. Like he seems insane. But, there you go. There you have it. We'll see what happens there. All right, Scott, one more quick break. We'll be back for wins and fails.
Support for the show comes from AG1. Getting through your daily routine can leave you pretty drained by the end of the day. AG1 is looking to help you keep your energy last so you don't completely collapse when the sun starts to set. AG1 Next Gen is a daily health drink clinically shown to support gut health and fill in common nutrient gaps. With 5 probiotic strains and 75 plus vitamins and minerals, AG1 Next Gen replaces the need for a multivitamin, probiotics, and more. One scoop in the morning with 8 to 12 ounces of cold water adds up to whole body health. I've used AG1 to help me get through my day, and I have to say, I like it. It's, tastes good enough to know that it's healthy. Head to drinkag1.com/pivot to claim your free welcome kit. You'll get a bottle of vitamin D3/K2, a shaker bottle, and a sample pack of all 3 new AG1 flavors, tropical, citrus, and berry, such that you can find your favorite. That's drinkag.com/pivot to try AG1 today.
Okay, Scott, let's hear some wins and fails.
Well, my fail is it's a specific issue of a much larger trend that has become the zeitgeist in our economy, and that is the NBA gambling scandal.
Oh, yeah.
So Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier, I believe his name is, and Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups were among 30 arrested in an FBI investigation that uncovered a poker rigging and illegal betting ring.
Yeah.
Many politicians, as well as the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, have increased calls to Congress to tighten regulations around sports gambling. Since the 2018 Supreme Court decision overturning a federal law that prohibits sports betting outside of Nevada, 38 states have legalized gambling on sports. By the way, the first thing that happens when you legalize betting in a state is bankruptcies go up 20 to 30%. Wagers on sports hit $160 billion last year, making it larger than the lottery. 1 in 4 adults say they personally bet money on sports. And by the way, last year, 1 in 2 men just bet on the Super Bowl. And 1 in 10 U.S. adults have placed a bet using an online sports book. Despite the proliferation, Americans see betting as a bad thing. 43% of U.S. adults agree that legal sports betting is a bad thing for society, compared to just 34% who agreed 3 years ago. And it preys on, and I don't want to infantilize young men, but they're more risk aggressive. And when you put a dope hit and betting in their pocket, it is in godlike technology. And basically every ad now, when you turn on this TV to watch Premier League, is 10 pounds free when you sign up for 25 pounds. And folks, they make it impossible to win over the long term. If you're good at it, they basically don't let you bet anymore. And the newest trend in sports betting, which will probably have the greatest appreciation in market cap in private companies, is predictions markets.
Right.
And currently, a case is making its way through the courts to decide the future of sports betting on prediction markets. And prediction market weekly volume is about $2 billion, with about a fifth of the coming from sports betting, the highest category volume. Anyways, but on a bigger level, meta level, it essentially is more indicative of our economy, and that is we're the economy now resembles Vegas, and that
it's not a thing. It's just betting. It's like crypto. Right. It's not a thing. It's not making a thing. It's something else. What would you call it? It's an economic activity. It's just not productive.
Well, the houses always win, and the machines are narrative platforms, hot tech IPOs, meme coins, dudes in hoodies pitching the next big thing. And its value, our value in the economy now, is not derived from character or hard work. It's from attention and speculation rather than goods and services. Yep. And then the traditional levers of power, business innovation, labor productivity, real estate growth, they all recede, and young people no longer aspire or
empty calories is what you're saying.
Yeah, empty. And they don't develop the means, they don't develop the will, and they don't develop the patience for enduring value.
It's scary.
Why actually figure out a way to get through all the regulations and build a building when you can go get it financed from Qatar by monetizing the White House? Or why even do that when you can just launch a meme coin? And then essentially it means the winners get, the winners, a small group of people who can own or control or monetize healthcare, monetize the government, win, and the losers get stuck with the odds. So we have godlike technology in gambling that's the dope hit. For majority of our time on this planet, we haven't had access to free, safe play and gaming. So when we have it, we go crazy with it. Also, there's people telling us we can be rich and we can be popular and we can get women, and they hit you at exactly the wrong time when you're most vulnerable. And you're just seeing more and more people have their lives ruined by this shit. And then the broader loss is that our economy is becoming about synthetic risk-taking, not enduring value. not the hard work, the labor to build a company, to invest in relationships. You get a quick hit from this kind of gambling or casino-like economy. I think it's just creating the wrong values, and it's an erosion in the character of long-term thinking.
No, we're a casino. But okay, so what's your win?
What is my win? You go first. I got to think of one.
I have so many fails happening at this time, at this moment, but probably the Jamaica and Haiti and Cuba with the hurricanes headed our way. We're going to have a lot more hurricanes, and it sounds like it's going to, a Category 5 is going to hit this place. So my thoughts are with the people there. It seems very dire what's happening there, and of course we've cut back on all kinds of really important, speaking of important things we do monitor. I just feel a sense of unease for them and also our own country, which will get hit by all kinds of weather mishaps that are highly avoidable in terms of saving lives. That you can't, we certainly have climate change issues that are making this worse, but at the same time, we should be able to protect and save people. So I just worry for those right now. It's happening right now, actually. At this, my other real fail, they're both real fails, but this is all this, which you're talking about, these empty calories, these, pathways to corruption that are everywhere. You saw the media do it a bunch of times this week, whether it was Comcast putting money into the ballroom. I must have really been difficult for Brian Roberts, but he did it because he's on the outs with Trump. So give him some money for the stupid ballroom. And when I think about that, the way it could have been done, look, I don't care. Look, the White House is not that attractive a thing of our many things. I think the main part is, but the East Wing is not necessarily a winner. But the way to have redone it could have been so fantastic and bipartisan, and there could have been a contest. It could have been everyone involved. It could have been interesting the way we with the people who are both pearl clutching and then attacking the pearl clutchers. I don't think they're pearl clutchers. I think they really are sorry that happened that way. Is it could have been done in such a great way. Like let's update the White House. Let's do something, but a contest. You could have kids involved. You could have done a whole thing that would have united us versus this bullshit, which is he just does what he wants, and then the people get upset about him doing what he wants, and it goes back and forth. It was such a missed opportunity, and it feels like that all over the place. Whoever it gets to do what they want to do is not American. It just feels very un-American, a lot of these things. And then a win, speaking of Brian Roberts, Taylor Sheridan, who's a really important producer. There's always a producer of the moment. He happens to be that. He's behind Yellowstone and Landman. He has signed a deal to join NBC Universal. It's not for a few years, but when his Paramount deal is up, it's not good for Ellison and Paramount, but it doesn't matter because Ellison is essentially a Nepo baby, son of Larry Ellison. So he'll get his TikTok this week, or he'll get his deal to buy Warner, and everyone will fall into line. But I thought that was an interesting situation for Taylor. I thought it was a win for NBC. But who knows? Who knows how much more Sheridan will keep, having the hits. But still an interesting shift.
But I think if we were, or what I'm going to start doing is it's no longer, what are they calling it? I mean, I know it was called the East Wing. It's supposed to be called the Ballroom now, or the Grand Ballroom.
I'm not calling it that, but go ahead.
Well, anyways,
it's just a ballroom.
From this point forward, we should call it what it is. And this is the Epstein bedroom. There's the Lincoln bedroom. This is the Epstein bedroom, because all this is another attempt to distract us from Jeffrey Epstein and the release of the Epstein files. So,
and Mike Johnson won't seat that representative.
But the bottom line is, it really isn't that. Quite frankly, I don't think this is that big a deal. Obama had renovations. Okay, I don't like the way he's going about it.
This is different than anything.
I do not think this is that meaningful. I really don't.
I don't, but the way he did, I think it's more like this wasn't America. Like, this is what I'm saying. The guy's calling him to call off the San Francisco thing. Let's just tear it down without consultation. Not even, like, that is un-American. It is just not, I guess maybe it is American. I don't know.
Anyways, the win. So the win is, and just a reminder, there is, for all this performative masculinity around taking $1 trillion a year expenditure and having missile strikes, which may be, quite frankly, extrajudicial murder at this point, which is just so performative, in my opinion, stupid. There is a real war taking place with a real lethal force. in Ukraine. And according to, I think it's Petteri Orpo, Finland's prime minister, Ukrainian forces do appear to have halted major Russian advances on some fronts.
With help by Europe.
Yes, that's right. And Ukraine's capacity to strike against targets inside Russia has improved. I do hope we provide them with the long-range missiles and the Tomahawk, which is an incredible weapon to target their refining capabilities. An opinion piece in The Guardian reports that Ukrainians' mood in Kyiv is more confident now than a year ago, though the situation is still grave. There's much, it still feels like the mood is upbeat, there's greater resolve, and discussions are advancing around using frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine's reconstruction and defense, which is on its own a sign of growing international alignment. So anyways, my win and reminder is the real fight here, the real lethality that is proving, is upholding our freedom and our democracy is taking place. It's not off the shores of Venezuela. It's in Ukraine right now, where the Ukrainian army does continue to punch well above their weight class. So anyway, that's my win.
That's a good one. Because, that's, speaking of economic value, think about the windfalls that's going to happen there as we rebuild that very vibrant and innovative culture, right? This is like an opportunity for the United States to build real things versus this nonsense. Like, all the different people that have to suck up to Trump. It's grotesque to watch them one after the next, sucking up to him. But there's no economic value there. It's just a grift. It's just one long grift. And that's not how you make things, right? You get ahead because you fluff a billionaire. Like, stop it. Like, it has no economic value. And whether you like us being involved in other countries or not, the best thing would be to have a peaceful Ukraine that will then innovate and create a better, I don't know. It just seems like it's not, none of this is economic. It's just grift. And so it's very disappointing. I'll tell you that. Anyway, we want to hear from you. Send us your questions about business, tech, or whatever's on your mind. Go to nymag.com/pivot to submit a question for the show or call 855-51-PIVOT. And elsewhere in the Kara and Scott universe, this week on with Kara Swisher, which Scott Galloway is going to be on soon for his new book, I spoke with writer, director, and producer Judd Apatow. Let's listen to a clip.
If you can go on a computer and make it look like deep space and it doesn't cost $3 million, it costs $40,000. Well, clearly, in some ways, that will help people. It will decimate the people that made space, but it seems like we're not going to be able to stop that when it gets cheaper. But the writing and the directing will always wind up generic because it's scraped and it's just copying other things.
Oh, we'll see about that, Judd. But he's that guy has got a history of really amazing work in comedy. Anyway, he's just really sharp about what's happening. I thought it was a great talk. And a reminder, he really is. And a reminder, but you're going to be even more impressive.
Oh, yeah, go on.
You're going to be good. I'm going to let you talk and talk and talk, so you'll have a good time. Reminder, which I already do here, we're going to go on tour. We'll be going to Toronto, Boston, New York, D.C., Chicago, San Francisco, and L.A. Scott and I are going to be together so much. We're sold out in Toronto and San Francisco, and the other cities are very close. But visit pivottour.com, especially use Chicago. We've got extra large venue there, so come and see us. We also got some surprises there, some good big names coming. Okay, that's the show. Thanks for listening to Pivot, and make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back on Friday. Scott, read us out.
Today's show was produced by Lara Naaman, Zoë Marcus, and Taylor Griffin. Ernie Intertot engineered this episode. Ronnie Polidoro edited the video. Additional support from Kate Gallagher and Brad Sylvester. Thanks also to Drew Burrows, Mr. Very own Dan Shalon. Nishat Kurwa is Vox Media's executive producer of podcasts. Make sure to follow Pivot on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks for listening to Pivot from New York Magazine and Vox Media. You can subscribe to the magazine at nymag.com/pod. We'll be back later this week for another breakdown of all things tech and business.